Hey guys, I'm doing a review today of Blade Runner 2049. I just want to give you my thoughts on it, tell you what was good, maybe some things that were not so good, but not many, because I feel like the film is beautiful. So, I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I've got some notes that I've made. That's how much I love the film. I thought the cinematography was really beautiful in the movie. The main parts of the original that many people like is how stark the world feels. And I feel that they captured that perfectly in this new adaptation. I say it's an adaptation because it was built from a story noir, like a novelette that Ridley Scott was writing for years and trying to get a new Blade Runner made from. Overall, the script is well polished. The story never feels slack. It never feels like you're taken somewhere for the sake of it in the film. The characters enrich the movie. They add personality to a very stark film, and that's what they should do. It should feel like there's touches of humanity in this eerie, very stark. I know I've said stark a lot, but it really is very oppressive. The film is, and it's what a dystopian future should feel like. It's what many people love about the original film, but they've taken the original premise of the original and expanded upon it. So we're taken all over the world in this movie. I don't think that's much of a spoiler from if you watch the trailers. So the overall universe feels a lot more well-rounded as compared to the original. It's very much, the original is very much set in a certain place, and it's how the characters interact in that space. Whereas this film is, it goes on a journey, and that's nice to see because it makes the original feel that much bigger, because it expands on ideas that you were given in the original. If many of you haven't watched the original, I highly recommend it. It's my favourite movie, which is why I wanted to do this one so... I wanted to go and see this one so much. I was slightly apprehensive whether they would do a good job with it, just because of how much I favour that first experience with the franchise. I think that if I break it down into categories for you, it would better explain my overall experience while watching the film. So I've touched on cinematography. I just want to take you through some of the notes that I made. So the lighting in the movie feels dark, eerie and oppressive, which, like I said before, it perfectly matches what they're trying to do with the film. I'd say that there's scenes in the film that are a big contrast, which is good to see. They segregate the movie into different lighting aspects. So where you have dark scenes in the cityscape scenes that feel like the world is not a nice place to live in. And then when they shoot open world scenes, places that you've not experienced before as a Blade Runner fan, they change the lighting aspects, and that really is impressive to see in the film. The cinematography for lighting, I don't know who's done it. I should have done some research, but the starkness of taking you from one place to another is outlined perfectly with the lighting. You really will feel that you are watching a different experience from one scene to the next, especially when they take you out of that city. In terms of certain light versus dark aspects in the movie, they play with it, and it's like eye candy to watch. It's so impressive and immersive when you see how they play with light in this film. I'm not going to mention any spoilers, but there's certain scenes in the movie when you watch it, you will be blown away by the lighting aspects alone in the movie. It's incredible. I would say that the way that the movie is shot is extremely impressive in itself, taking you from small aspects, so Kay being built up in this city, to outer world where you feel that the scene engulfs the character, and that perfectly harps back to the main themes in the movie. The world is so big, you are such a small part in this world. The character of Kay is the main narration in the whole movie, and yet you feel connected to him and disconnected at the same time, which is perfect. It's shot absolutely perfectly. The structures in the movie, the architecture, all add to look at how small Kay is in the grand scheme of things, and that they are main themes that are always touched on in Blade Runner. There is always a poetic underlying tone in Blade Runner movies that make you feel or ask you a question about what humanity is and what it is to be human, and the parts that we all play in humanity. And the way that the film is done, and handles characters to ask you those questions, are why I love the original so much, and why I probably will pick this film up when it is released and watch it a million times over. I'm sure you all will. There are parts of the cinematography in the movie that, compared to the original, I know I keep harping back to the original, but it's because the world is so, I feel like they have just taken the original and built the world around it, which is perfect for me because I love the original so much. The cinematography, like I said before, it highlights perfectly the world that you are watching, and it makes for an extremely immersive experience for anybody watching. Hopefully not just a sci-fi fan. I hope that it would bring in many people into this genre, because it's a very human movie for the subject matter that they're talking about, which is quite surprising. Again, without spoiling anything, you'll feel extremely connected to Kay as a character, and that's clever when you think about the premise of the movie as an overall theme. That's very clever, the way that they've managed that. I just want to move on from cinematography and talk about sound in the movie. Me and my girlfriend both watched this film and turned to each other exactly the same moment in the movie, and it's very rare that we'll watch a film together and experience the exact same thought at the exact same time. And she just turned to me and said that that music is really uncomfortable, and it makes the world feel horrible. That's the only way of putting it. There's no eloquent way of putting it. It's there's a part of the film where they're in the city, and with all the beautiful cinematography that I've already talked about, the music and the sound effects just drill it home. How oppressive, how stark, and how dark this movie is. And those parts of the film don't feel like they hang over you, because there's so much beauty in the film. And in terms of a poetic line, if you want to go down that way, how we had the dark and light themes represented, you could say that about the sound as well. The contrast between light and dark, the contrast between oppressive to beauty in terms of sound. There's always Vangelis's original score in the movie that highlights perfectly what the original was to this new film, where you have these beautiful score tracks running through at certain times, which make the feel of the film uplifting, even in a really sad place, as opposed to big thuds, big sound effects, deep throbs when the film is in a dramatic part, when the film is trying to punch over to you how dangerous something might be. You'll have these little breakthroughs of the original score, obviously worked on by Hans Zimmer as well, where that beauty, those little tones in the movie and the music break through what you've experienced, and they bring you home while you watch the movie. They bring you to a sense of, this is humanity fighting against elements that we all wish weren't there, and that echoes society today, which is what perfectly dystopian futures represent. They're a warning, and there's many warnings in this film. Many aspects of day-to-day life that you wish weren't there is represented in the movie, and that's, you know, that in itself is, when you watch movies and they speak to you in that sense, you feel like it's a worthwhile experience to watch a film. As opposed to the original score from the original Blade Runner, which was Vangelis, to Hans Zimmer's version in this movie, I don't feel like you'll be thrown off if you are a fan of the original. I think Hans Zimmer had a huge, monumental task, because one of the biggest things in the original is the music, and many people love the original score, so you know it's very, very difficult to add onto something that most people find as close to perfect as you can get. But I think he's done it. I think he's like knocked it out of the park, because he's not tried to scrap the original. He's just tried to take elements that are Blade Runner cores, essentials, and add something over the top. His take on Hans Zimmer's original, and I think he's done that perfectly in the film. In terms of music, I feel like you will love it as an experience. Definitely go and see it on IMAX if you can. I went to see it in a small theatre, and I kind of wish I'd have gone to see it on a bigger scale, because you really do need to hear hear the work that's gone into the score. It's extremely beautiful, as is the movie. I want to touch on another part of the movie. Now we're going to go on to the flaws in the film. So, watching the film, I don't think I would say there's any major flaws to the movie. The original had many flaws, but in terms of a movie, it depends on what kind of movie viewer you are. So if you go into a film and you want everything spoon-fed, that's not me trying to discredit anybody, but some people do like to watch movies that give you everything up front so you can make informed decisions about whether you like the film or not. This is not your movie. Simply because Blade Runner is, it has noir themes, and things are mentioned or touched upon, and it is left to the viewer of the film to decide how they feel about a certain subject that it's covered, and how they relate to characters in the movie as opposed to the world. It will always ask you questions about your humanity. It will ask you questions about what it is to be alive, what you would regard as being alive, how you feel about society, how you feel about your own humanity. There are many themes it will touch upon and will touch you if you allow it to. It will ask you these questions, but it won't force those questions on you. So they are deliberately vague points of the movie, poetic points in the film, and I feel like the film is built around those points, but they're not shoved down your throat. They are suggested to you, and it is up to you to decide how you feel about the questions that the movie asks you. I feel that is an enriching experience, and very few films can do that to you. Ask you a question and still give you exciting story to watch. For me, it's, like I say, an enriching experience compared to some of the ways that films are giving story to the viewer. Now, is that a fault of the movie? To some people it will be. The original has many faults, editing mistakes, if you watch certain cuts, very vulgar themes or aspects that I feel were shoehorned into the movie. If you want to watch the true Blade Runner experience, then you watch the final cut by Ridley Scott, because that is his perfect, as close to his perfect realization of the movie. And that the new film very much follows that kind of aspect, and there are parts of this movie which I'm sure aren't perfect, but like I said before, it depends how you feel as a viewer. If that is something that you are wanting from a film, it is always going to be very difficult to deliver that perfect movie to you. There'll always be a mistake somewhere, but the flaws in films are humans trying to tell stories, and humans aren't perfect, and this film echoes those ideas perfectly. So to me, they aren't flaws, and it's up to you to decide. if you think they are make or break for a movie, as with the original. As a sum, so moving on to a summary, I would say go and see this film. I would say if you've not seen the original, go and see the original first, and then be enriched and let this new film pull you into the world that was created by the original. If you have seen the original and you are wanting to jump straight into this one, I feel you can. I feel that all of the story in this new Blade Runner very much feels like a singular story, and if you don't want to watch the original, you wouldn't have to understand the themes or aspects of this movie. As was the Harrison Ford movie. They are standalone movies. If you don't want to touch this film, if you don't want to watch this film because you love the original so much, you wouldn't have to visit this one either. It's not an essential. They are standalone films, which I feel is very clever as well. So I would wholeheartedly recommend this movie. And I'd seen somewhere that it's not done so well in opening week. Maybe it's not surprising because the Harrison Ford movie, I'm conscious about how many times I've said original. The Harrison Ford movie, the original, didn't do well either. It was a cult following, and I feel this one will be as well. I think it just needs more bums on seats to give it a chance, or just more of an open-minded audience. Sci-fi struggles sometimes anyway, just because of the nature of what sci-fi is. But I feel like if you want a real well-rounded experience, you should go and see this film. And yeah, I feel like for me it's as close to a perfect movie as it can be. So thanks for watching my Blade Runner 2049 review. Hope to see you again at the channel, and I hope you enjoy the content that I make. Thank you very much.